without sharks and salt. The representative from Minnesota, Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it truly astonishing that House Republicans have brought us here today to discuss ways to unleash America's workforce while they are actively abandoning workers. How exactly are we supposed to unleash anything when federal workers are being threatened by an unelected billionaire? When critical government services and authorized funds are being disturbed at a whim? When worker protection, basic safeguards against unsafe working conditions and employment discrimination are being undermined? We are already hearing reports that the Trump administration has begun firing many workers at the Department of Labor and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Ranking Member Scott and I recently sent a letter to HHS demanding more information about these staffing cuts and grant distributions. We have not heard anything back yet.
Hey everybody, welcome back to America Patriots, the channel where truth still matters, freedom still means something, and where we break down Washington craziness with a little humor and a whole lot of common sense. Before we jump in, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Seriously, hit it like Congress hits the outrage button every time Donald Trump sneezes. When you subscribe, you support a channel that actually talks about America the way Americans talk about America. Plus, it's free, it's fast, and honestly, it's more satisfying than your morning coffee. All right, let's get into today's episode, because oh boy, this congressional hearing was something.
Without sharks and salt. The representative from Minnesota, Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it truly astonishing that House Republicans have brought us here today to discuss ways to unleash America's workforce while they are actively abandoning workers. How exactly are we supposed to unleash anything when federal workers are being threatened by an unelected billionaire? When critical government services and authorized funds are being disturbed at a whim? When worker protection, basic safeguards against unsafe working conditions and employment discrimination are being undermined? We are already hearing reports that the Trump administration has begun firing many workers at the Department of Labor and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Ranking Member Scott and I recently sent a letter to HHS demanding more information about these staffing cuts and grant distributions. We have not heard anything back yet. Dr. Sholes, I want you to help us understand how these attacks on critical agencies will impact worker safety. What does it mean for workers if these agencies lose significant numbers of federal employees?
What OSHA does is protect workers' health and safety by passing laws, by passing regulations, publishing regulations, enforcing those regulations. When they have less personnel, they will be able to do that less effectively. America's workers will be less safe on the job, full stop. The Wage and Hour Division, for example, they enforce wage protections. They make sure, their workforce has already been shrunk dramatically, so their low-wage workers today lose tens of billions of dollars a year in the form of wage theft by their employers, employers not paying minimum wages that they are owed, not paying overtime that they are owed. We cut Wage and Hour Division, and that skyrockets even further. Workers will be hurt by actually being hurt on the job and by losing wages that they were legally owed.
Yeah. And who really benefits when agencies lose this capacity?
Okay. The people who benefit are bad apple employers. They benefit because they are able to cut corners on worker safety protections. They're able to cut corners on actually paying their workers. They just don't have as much oversight over what they do. So bad apple employers gain over workers. Bad apple employers gain over lawful employers because then they are in a competitive advantage over lawful employers. And then the other group that benefits from this are the wealthy, who are going to be the disproportionate beneficiaries of the tax cuts that these kinds of agency cuts are going to help pay for.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I have to say, these attacks will have, as you just said, real and devastating consequences for working people in this country. It's about thinking about economic mobility. It's about thinking about job security. It's, at minimum, thinking about institutional stability. And what we are witnessing that is taking place in this country really is something that I find very outrageous and shameful. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation. I hope that we get to have many of these conversations. And lastly, before I yield back my time, Mr. Molino, Ms. Molino, why do you believe workers suffering heat exhaustion is not a work hazard?
It is a public health hazard, and OSHA is limited by what the authority that Congress has delegated it. OSHA has authority to regulate and oversee occupational hazards.
Yeah, standards, right?
Occupational hazards.
Yes. And why would you not think it is not an occupational hazard if someone is being forced to work 8 hours under 120 degrees without getting regular breaks?
And employers are already taking action to
So
protect
you believe
workers from
employers should have the responsibility to decide who dies and who survives in the heat?
They have a responsibility to keep their workers safe, most definitely, but that is separate and apart from OSHA's
So you're saying
authority.
those employers who have not done that, who have seen people die at their workplaces in places like Texas, it's just because they're bad people and we shouldn't have the responsibility of protecting the workers, is what I hear.
That's not what I'm saying, but thank you.
I thank the gentlelady. I recognize now the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
We start off with Representative Ilhan Omar, bringing more drama than a telenovela. She launches into this passionate monologue about unelected billionaires, federal workers being threatened, the sky cracking open, earthquakes, fireballs. I'm exaggerating, but honestly not by much. I kept waiting for her to say, and then a dragon descended from the ceiling of the Capitol. I mean, the intensity level was at a 10 before the hearing even got rolling. She talks about how the Trump team is supposedly firing workers at the Department of Labor and NIOSH. Now, whether or not that's happened the way she claims, let's remember one thing. Trimming federal bloat is not the apocalypse. It's normal. Most Americans have been begging for years, decades, for the government to stop spending money like it's allergic to savings. If your fridge breaks down, you don't hire 3 new people to stare at it. You figure out what's actually needed. That's how normal folks operate. Washington could take notes. Next up, Dr. Sholes jumps in to say OSHA won't be able to enforce laws with fewer people. Well, obviously. But the question is every single position necessary? Are all these departments operating efficiently? Or are there layers and layers of paperwork and committees and task forces that exist mostly to justify their own paychecks? Anyone who's dealt with federal forms knows the answer to that one. Then we get the whole wage theft conversation. He says workers lose tens of billions a year. Look, no one is saying wage theft is okay. Nobody. But acting like the average American business owner is some mustache-whirling villain, sitting in a dark office plotting how to steal $47 from Tina on the morning shift, that's cartoon logic. Most business owners are hard-working people trying to survive government regulations thicker than a Sunday Bible. And according to witnesses, the ones who benefit from reducing agency size are the bad apple employers. Sure, a few try to cheat the system. But here's the secret sauce they never talk about. Shrinking bureaucracy also helps good employers who are drowning under rules written by people who have never worked outside Washington. It also helps taxpayers and small businesses and workers who want jobs that actually exist. Omar jumps into this sweeping statement about how all this harms economic mobility, job security, stability. Basically, if Trump sneezes, the entire American workforce collapses like a Jenga tower. Meanwhile, half the country remembers record low unemployment, rising wages, energy independence, and grocery prices you could actually afford under Trump. So forgive us for not buying the doomsday scenario. Now we arrive at the highlight of the hearing, the heat exhaustion argument. Omar is grilling Ms. Molino like she's on a cooking show. Why isn't heat exhaustion an occupational hazard? She asks dramatically. Look, obviously extreme heat can be dangerous. No one's debating that. But the point Molino was trying to make, before getting cut off like a teenager's phone after blowing the data plan, is that OSHA can only regulate what Congress authorized it to regulate. That's how laws work. Agencies aren't supposed to wake up one morning and invent new powers just because someone is angry that day. Omar takes the whole thing to a fiery level, acting like if OSHA doesn't regulate every inch of heat in every corner of Texas, employers will just sit around deciding who lives and who dies like some kind of dystopian sci-fi movie. Come on. Most employers want workers healthy, safe, and hydrated because guess what? Dead workers aren't very productive. It's common sense. And then at the end, Omar drops this huge emotional finale about being outraged and ashamed. I swear, if you close your eyes, you'd think you were listening to the closing speech of a courtroom drama. This wasn't a hearing. It was a performance. Here's the thing. Patriots like us want workers safe. Of course we do. We want fair wages, safe workplaces, and companies that follow the law. But we also want government that's efficient, sensible, and doesn't pretend it needs 10,000 employees to do what 500 can do. We want agencies that protect workers, not agencies that grow so big they become their own problem. Trump's team has always pushed for smaller, smarter government, not chaos. And watching some folks react to that like it's the end of civilization, that's the real comedy. So, if you enjoyed this breakdown, do me a favor and hit subscribe. Join the America Patriots family. We call out political absurdity. We laugh about it, and we keep freedom-loving voices alive on this platform. Like the video, if you had a good time, leave a comment with your favorite moment from the hearing, and share this with someone who needs a break from the doom and gloom news cycle. This is America Patriots signing off. Stay free, stay sharp, stay proud of your country, and stay way cooler than Congress during a heat exhaustion debate. I'll see you in the next one.